Hello and welcome to another episode of the Simon and Friends podcast. I am Simon Short. Joining me this week is Josh Limesand. Josh, welcome in, man. How you doing?
Hi, doing pretty good. The turmoil of free agency where things change every 5 seconds. I'm sure everything we say tonight will be obsolete, by the morning you post it.
But on the other hand, I know it's been several months since you watched the Vikings game because that was your happiest greeting in quite a few podcast episodes. So things are going well, other than the Vikings, trying to trade their number one edge rusher. But that's not what we're here to talk about tonight.
Nope.
There is, as Josh mentioned, as I just kind of alluded to, there's a ton of breaking news in the NFL right now, right? Post combine, all those handshakes and conversations have been had. Players are starting to be released. Players are getting restructured contracts. Players are being traded. Um, the nature of this iteration of the podcast, we don't really get to just sit with the news and discuss that very often. But I imagine a lot of those things will get mentioned and brought up and discussed over the course of our conversation tonight. So, Josh, let's get right into our power rankings for the week. As you all know, Josh is here to power rank something. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you. Our in season power rankings are just your typical the 32 teams, how they're playing over the course of the month, and we do a power ranking. We move them up and down as the year goes. In the off season, we try to have some fun. We try to preview some off season stuff and then just talk about fun things that are happening in the NFL over the summer. What we're doing tonight is our free agency power rankings. So we are taking our top 32 free agents and using them kind of as a vehicle to discuss and preview free agency. Now, this one's going to get a little wild with our ranking. We'll see how long we end up going because we have, what did I say, 12 differences just on our list of players. So we're going to have a total, I believe, of 44 players on our ranking. So we're going to lop 12 of these guys off. We have some guys that are like 20 spaces apart. We're going to have to figure out where we put them because Josh shows up with his rankings, I show up with mine, and we try to come to a consensus rank over the course of the podcast episode. Um, Josh, this one is probably one of our weirdest to do based on the parameters,
Mhm.
because there are no parameters. And there's lots of ways to rank free agents, right? When you talk about cap discrepancy of positional value, when you talk about, okay, a player's overall rating, when you talk about like, okay, what's one class really strong at from a positional standpoint? Like is the market saturated for this person's position? How does that impact the ranking? When you were doing your ranking, trying to put your 32 guys together and put them in order of how you wanted, what do you think you went to most? What was like your kind of core tenet of how you were ranking players?
I think my core tenet was like, I th so you when you said the position groups that are saturated, I think there's a player that we'll talk about that I don't know if I'd have him anywhere near how high he is on my list if there were more of this position, and I'll try to remember to mention that
Hmm.
when we talk about him because I don't know what I'm seeing, and I have looked at after I make my initial list, I do like to look around, and I won't name the person, but there's a guy from a major website that I like to look at because I disagree with him a lot, so I like to challenge myself to say, well, I know I'm not going to agree with most of what he says, but it gives some contradictory perspective that I like to look at. But there's a guy that I kept seeing in the top 10, in the top five consistently for people, and I really didn't want to put him up there. But due to a lack of depth in the free agency class of that position, I do understand how he would be valued a little bit more. And so when I make my rankings, I do look at availability. We can see up. Is it? Can people
Not up
view our
yet.
list?
Not
Not
up
up yet.
yet.
Okay, never mind. I won't
I
say
was
yet. But
smart this time.
my number one is not who I think is the best player in this free agent class, but I think it's based on position and based on what teams need. And then there's a guy that I have that you don't have that you're probably laughed when you saw where I put him at the same position, just based on, well, these are guys that
Mm.
I know they aren't the best players, but do I think that they're at important positions and they can contribute in some ways? Because I view free agent players as teams are bringing these guys in to help stabilize or to help be small upgrades. Like there are a few players, yes, that will be like there's a guy I'll mention near the end that I think he might get a deal just based on teams that wanted to draft him out of college and didn't, and he hasn't really come into much at the NFL, but they're going to still base it off their college tape. Like I think there are some upside plays, but largely I think a free agent player is one that fills a position either in a stabilizing manner or in a slight upgraded manner. And so it's not necessarily the best players at every position. And then, I did, on top of that, I did try to look at upside or, you know, the players when I go back and watch some tape, like does which players pop a little bit more because you know that they're going to have a bigger impact on the game, so to speak, and then just guys because it's so hard because then there's some guys that are they're going to be rejuvenated hopefully on a different team
Hmm.
and we're going to see something from them that we haven't seen in a while, and so it is a little all over the board for rankings. So I don't even know if I answered your question, but I did look at availability of certain players, and then the Josh eye test, which has got to be famous right now on this podcast. I'm going to make a bold call for one of my early guys in the top 10 that is based on nothing but just what I kind of want to see in my heart of hearts. So we'll see how that goes over.
We can't do a podcast without the Josh eye test. That is for sure. That is why you are here. I came down to four things. I had four pillars, right, if you will. So best at each position is just supply and demand. Like how many guys at your position are there available in free agency? Um, Also, like not extending to the supply of the draft class, like thinking about the depth of the draft class at certain positions. If it's a good draft class, but not a good free agent class, that helps you a little bit, but maybe not quite as much as it would if the draft class was poor as well as the free agent class. Um, but then, like, how much better are you than the next best guy at the position, right? If it's like you're pretty close, then it's not that they're going to be necessarily closer in rank, but you as the top guy are going to be bumped down because it's like, okay, I could spend 15 million for you or 11 million for this guy. That's not that much worse. Whereas if there's a large gap, even if there's a lot of names, you'd still be pretty high. Um, the next thing I was looking at was going to be most impactful for their new team to gain. And then the last thing, because that kind of, well, the next thing is most impactful for their current team to lose. So something that was kind of new for me to think about this year specifically was, hey, how much is the incumbent team okay with letting this guy kind of walk? And that should tell us a lot about their value based on, hey, can I replace this guy with somebody in-house? Or maybe it's a position I don't really need at this point because maybe he still gets a pretty good contract elsewhere. But if the team he's leaving isn't that hurt, then is it that big a deal?
Right.
And then the last one is just like who's going to swing the most games with their impact. So that kind of gets to that positional value, right? Um, the number one quarterback of this class, what you were alluding to, is going to swing more games for better or worse. I didn't say
Right.
wins, just swing games.
Yep.
Than the third best linebacker, probably, right? Um, but that's enough hemming and hawing. You guys get it. You'll figure it out the rest of the way as we go. Let me pull up our top eight here for everybody. Um, the player ones are always fun too because I always put their I say always this is the second time it's happened, but I put their headshots in, so it kind of gets all kerfuffled. But here's who we have. Now we both have Trey Hendrickson and Jalen Phillips in the top three. That's a really good start. We both
Yep.
have Tyler Linderbaum in the top five. We both have Malik Willis in the top six. So I'm actually pretty happy with the way
This is
this
pretty
started for
good.
us. Um, how did you come down to getting Malik Willis above Hendrickson and Phillips specifically? Let's start at the very top.
So this was solely this is kind of the old adage of quarterback's the most important position. And the teams that need a quarterback, there is not much else after Malik Willis. I will mention one more tonight, and that is it. Um, so there's and it's only a one quarterback draft. So unless you're the Raiders, and not only that, but I was just going to say the Raiders are almost 99% sure it sounds like that they're going to take Fernando Mendoza,
Hmm.
right? So if
Hmm.
you are a team that needs a bridge quarterback, you have no options. You have or very few options. And the other thing to Malik Willis's credit is he's a kind of a unique player because he's not necessarily the typical bridge quarterback where he's getting up there in age and he's
Hmm.
proven a little bit. He has a small sample size, but he's a proven guy that is still young enough that that he does have a little upside on top of it. And so I think that's what the nudge was for me is that in a one quarterback draft, you're the Cardinals, you just released Kyler Murray. You're the Dolphins, you're not going to deal with the Tua. You have to pay Tua, but you're not going to start him next year. You're the Jets, you're somebody that you're the Colts who want to make sure that when they're transitional tagged, I mean they probably can't do it now that they're paying Daniel Jones almost 40 million for the transitional tag, but a team that would desperately need a quarterback or want a quarterback, he is your best option right now in my opinion. He's proven not because not only did he win games when he was filling in for Jordan Love. He looked good doing it. He showed flashes of the talent that people saw when he came out of college, and he looks like he's grown a lot from his, rough start in Tennessee. And so it's a player that's been battle tested a little bit, but he's got a whole bunch of tread still left on the tires. So if you have the money and your team that needs it, you should be going after this quarterback. I like the Cardinals for him, also with the other LaFleur connection, and the Cardinals
Hmm.
at the moment have a pretty healthy, effective cap space available to pay a quarterback, and you're not going to have to pay him 50 million. You're going to hopefully going to be kind of, I would assume it's just south of like the Baker deal from a couple years ago, or right around there, where it's a few 2 or 3 years for like 20 to 30 million, give or take. I don't know. Does that seem high or low? I don't know.
I think the beginning of like once we got to the end of the season and really after his starts, it was like the Fields contract, 20 to 25, right?
Sure.
But during the combine week, now again, this is just, agents trying to drum up value. The number 35 was thrown out there.
Okay.
So that's quite the range. If you're getting up to
That's
35 for Malik Willis, that is tough.
that is
If you
yes.
can be in that 25 to 30 for 2 years and non-guaranteed on the second year, I think that would be kind of the most fair thing you could get.
Yeah. And so, and if people are wondering, like, why would you pay any money to this guy if your team is still going to be at the bottom of the barrel? Well, you still have to compete. You still have to put a team out there, and it's not like he doesn't have the potential to get better. And this is not a draft for quarterbacks. I'll keep going back to that. It's a one quarterback draft,
Yes.
really. It's as good as that way you can spend your draft picks on bolstering the rest of your roster. And if he doesn't work out, it's not going to be a bank breaking, expense. So now I can say what I was kind of saying at the outset, right? But Malik Willis by no means is, in my opinion, the best player in this free agent pool. This is a quarterback's most important position, and the situation or the landscape around him is bleak. And then to his credit, I'd be kind of happy to have Malik Willis. Like if I'm bringing in Malik Willis, there's some excitement there. It's not like, oh crap, like this is all we have. Like he did enough with the Packers to instill some like, okay, like this could be fun. So there is a little bit of juice and hype behind him, I think. So that's how he got to number one.
26-year-old backup quarterback leaving the Green Bay Packers with 2 or 3 starts under his belt in Green Bay, giving that guy a big contract that has worked out in the past for sure. Shout out Matt Flynn for the Seattle Seahawks.
That was based on like one game.
But two starts in his career with the Packers,
That's fair. That's fair.
3 starts for Malik Willis with the Packers, and then the handful of starts at Tennessee, but those were a disaster.
Yeah,
And literally both 26 years old. I didn't even realize that the age and true
that's
number
pretty
of starts
long.
with the Packers were that close. So that's a little uncanny. Listen, I have Malik Willis at 6. But I do want to get into quickly the Kyler Murray conversation. Kyler Murray was officially released
Mhm.
on what was that Monday, maybe Monday the 2nd, or two, maybe even just yesterday, Tuesday the 3rd. We're recording Wednesday the 4th. um and I messaged you and I was just like, we got, is he making your top 32? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
um I think it's wild that Malik Willis is drumming up more interest than Kyler Murray. Now I get the unknown versus known, like I understand that's the way people think.
Mhm.
The only reason I can think that that is a sound decision to make is if the behind the scenes stuff about Kyler's and his personality and the way his agency moves and works is really that toxic. If it's really that bad and everyone's just been hearing, because listen, he's had 2 regimes now, right? He's had 2 coaching staffs and 2 GMs. So it's not like there's just one spurned coach that's saying this guy sucks. I hate this guy, and everyone's listening to him. If it's this number of people, including like maybe Monty Austinfort letting people know, um, as a current standing GM, hey, like this is the stuff that's happening behind the scenes, and that's why nobody's going for it. Because I thought someone would for sure trade for Kyler just based on the talent. Um, but
Yeah.
clearly, not enough interest to trade him. Arizona's eating more dead money than I thought they would have to. But I don't know any of that stuff concretely, right? So all I can do is say I've seen Kyler be a good NFL quarterback,
Mhm.
and I didn't double check, but I feel like this is going to be the same situation for Kyler as it was with Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, where hey, you're only gonna have to pay this guy, maybe not Rodgers, but you're only gonna have to pay this guy the minimum because he's still
Yeah.
getting paid by Arizona. I don't see why you, especially now as a team, wouldn't pay Kyler $1.5 million instead of Malik Willis $30 million.
Yeah.
And if I'm thinking about like who can win more games, I think Kyler has proven he can win more games. If we're talking about being the best at the position, I think we can objectively say Kyler is a better quarterback than Malik Willis as of right now. Now, Malik Willis just hasn't really had a chance to prove it over a full season now that he's matured a little bit. I get that. I'm not saying this won't be the case. I'm just saying, like, as of where we are right now. Um, and then, like, sure, Arizona played most of the season without Kyler last year, but Arizona is getting a new starting quarterback. Green Bay is losing their backup quarterback. So I think Kyler is still ahead of Malik Willis. What holds you back from Kyler?
It's what you said about the behind the scenes stuff. There's everywhere I know sometimes it's just comments from people who probably don't aren't connected at all, but for whatever it's worth, I don't feel like I hear anything positive. It's never like, yeah, he's working hard. Yeah, he's doing this in the background to get back from injury.
Hmm.
Um, because in my head, yeah, it makes a whole bunch of sense. In my head, I would love for the Vikings to throw some money at Kyler Murray and say, hey, come in, open competition. JJ McCarthy, you either rise to the
Hmm.
occasion or Kyler gets a second chance to be a starter. And I'm happy as a Vikings fan. I would absolutely love that. But I think the fact that you mentioned that no, it didn't seem like there was a lot of trade buzz. Two regimes now have struggled with him. Like it's at the point where I just have zero trust in that. And I think that while Malik Willis's sample size was small enough, or sorry, was very small, um, I think people are probably looking at that as like there's a little bit more hope there for the future. So I think the noise for me is a little bit too loud. But that being said, I can't I can't sit here and try to convince you that Malik Willis is a better quarterback. There's no way. So so if he turns it around, if he gets the right team in the right headspace, yeah, it could be silly that we didn't just both have him at one to start, and we should have known this from the start, right? So that's I don't know what we do from that. I'm okay putting him ahead of Malik Willis. I mean, we both
Well,
had Malik in the top six, so
I mean, I think for the purposes of this exercise, though, I do think you're correct. Like, I think Malik Willis is going to get a big contract.
mhm,
Um, Teams showed that they're not interested in Kyler. Now, was it just at that money? Maybe.
maybe.
I just, for as much as I have dove into the cap over the last few years, I do think it's crazy that a contract that you're trading for, so you're not paying the signing bonus, and there's no guaranteed money after 1 year.
Right.
I kept hearing people say nobody wants to trade for Kyler at that number. It was a 1 year deal for, well, what was it, 30, 35, something like that. And I get that's a big number,
Yeah.
but 1 year 35 for Kyler or two for 35 for Malik Willis, like again, but this is where I'm gonna like put my we'll call it ego and pride aside and say like I think the league has shown us where they value Kyler. So and they're showing us where they value Malik Willis. So I am okay with Malik Willis staying above Kyler. I wouldn't want to
Okay.
drop Kyler too far. Like I think he should probably stay on this first page, considering we still have quite a few number of guys that
Yeah.
are different. But I'm okay with
Yeah.
Malik Willis being hired. Let me
Well, and I
give you
think
why. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, and just to double down on what I mentioned about the quarterback position, right? Like if Kyler Murray's available, like he should be in the top handful because of the potential there. So
To counter that, just for the sake of argument, even though I'm arguing against myself at this point, when Ronan and I did the QB predictions episode, we only came up with like five new quarterbacks. So it's not like yes, everybody would like to get
yeah,
better at quarterback, but there's not a lot of teams that are truly in position to really move on and make a significant change at quarterback. Like they're either in, we have our starter, we have our young guy we want to see play out, or like we've mildly invested in somebody that like we're working on other things right now. I'm in my phase where I'm working on me right now, right? I'm not trying to bring someone else in that I need to work on or
right,
manage.
right.
So maybe if this was a year where there were 10 QB openings and it was going to drive up that value and really drive up that interest, maybe we would have seen him get traded. Maybe we would see him get a team to take on the current contract.
Yeah,
But when it's only like four or five teams and everyone's just like,
yeah.
yeah, maybe not.
It's a
That I
good
think
point.
that's part of it. Okay, but let me talk to you about why I want at least these edge rushers ahead of Malik Willis. Again, I have Malik Willis at 6. I even just seeded that. I'd get him up to 5. I only have two guys ahead of him after that. But let me talk about these edge rushers. So I have Trey Hendrickson and Jalen Phillips 1 and 2. And I'm starting with them because I think they have the highest upside for any player who can change in 2026. Defensive linemen have the best chance and are the most consistently year after year impacting new teams. Think about Milton Williams with the Patriots and DeMarcus Lawrence this year with the Seahawks. Sure,
Mhm.
you have your 1 year mercenary types like Jadeveon Clowney, but even he, in the right circumstance, has made big impacts. Think about when he was with the Browns in 2024. So many good teams are looking for that one guy to get after the QB to buoy their defense throughout the regular season or turn the tides in the playoffs. Hendrickson is the most productive pass rusher to hit the open market in quite a while, like in terms of just being a true free agent, even though he's older and coming off the injury. And Phillips is still a young, rising player at the position who dealt with injuries early in his career with Miami, which is why he ultimately was deemed replaceable by them, but like was healthy last year and played really well for Philly to the point that they traded a third round pick for him. So he's going to be in demand. Um, Also thinking about their old teams losing them, it's obvious for Cincinnati and Hendrickson to part ways this year, but it's still a huge hole that are for a team that already had a bad defense. And when they drafted his heir apparent last year in Shamar Stewart, and that got off to such a disastrous start in 2025, there are obviously calls for concern there.
Yep.
And for Philly, they don't have a lot of cap space. When I did the exercise with Ben last week, we can get to like 20 mil offer of a contract for Phillips. And they do so many cap weird configurations. They could probably get that number technically up a little bit higher, but it would take just about all they have to bring back Jalen Phillips. And you know they're motivated to after trading a third round pick for him. So he's a guy that I think is going to get upwards of 20. I think Hendrickson could get upwards of 20. Um, and even though I'm happy that we're finally seeing that gap between like an interior defensive lineman and an edge rusher in terms of pass rushers get narrowed. These guys that are going to be top of the market and Hendrickson to have been in Defensive Player of the Year conversations 2 years ago and Phillips to still be 27 years old, I think they're going to make a big, big market demand in a couple weeks here.
Yep. I think you're 100% right on that. And I said basically the same thing about Jalen Phillips. I mean, the only question mark for him was, is he going to rebound from this injury? And he did so well from that injury that Philly traded for him for a playoff run, right? And
Hmm.
so that tells you all you need to know. He's still back at it. The only reason I put Trey Hendrickson ahead of him actually was just because Trey Hendrickson's wanted out of Cincinnati for 2 years now. And while he's 31 years old, he's still a huge impact player and he's going to be hungry for something. Like just imagine him and the impact he can have on a good defense. That's a playoff team already, a contender. And so that was too enticing to me to put him above. But I think what you said about the potential of Jalen Phillips and the young player who has shown that the injury did not affect him, and so he can still develop. He's going right into that prime time where you get the big money for your prime contract. So it'll be exciting to see what he gets. I think he's for sure going to get paid. So I have no problem with that. I don't think I like both those players. I had them 2-3 as well. So we both
You
had
know,
Hendrickson above Jalen Phillips.
I have to check on something here. But Josh and I are currently in the throes of a dynasty startup draft, which you know
Oh,
everyone loves when you talk about your own fantasy league and on a podcast.
of
But
course.
there are messages of trades happening in a startup draft of all things, so we're getting off the rails here. All right, nothing's happening right now. We're good. Um, Although Josh might have gotten a trade offer, he'll check on that and let us know. Yes, I agree with everything you just said for sure. How do you feel about going Hendrickson, Phillips, Willis? One, two, three. We split the difference there on Willis. You have him at 1, I have him
Yep.
at 6. We put him at 3.
I
Hendrickson
think
and
that's
Phillips
I
stick
think
one,
that's
two,
perfect
but
because
only
we
moving up one for you.
yeah, because we had Hendrickson and Phillips in the same order at their
Yep.
respective spots. So that sounds great to me.
Okay, so those are going to be our top three. Um, we both have Linderbaum up here, so he'll probably slide into 4.
Mhm.
I think everyone knows the case for Linderbaum at this point. Top center, top offensive lineman overall in free agency. It's also a very shallow draft class from a center standpoint. There's a couple good players, but nobody that center needy teams are gonna think we'll just draft him and put him in at center. There's a couple centers I'll talk about later on tonight that are nice second options, but Linderbaum between his own ability, but also the teams that need centers and the connections he has to them is going to drive his value way up. We're talking Baltimore is incumbent team, the Giants and John Harbaugh, and then the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh.
Yep.
So there are three center needy teams there that all have a Raven slash Linderbaum connection. Um, Makes a ton of sense that he's going to be really high up on the board here for us. Was there anything like super out there for Linderbaum that you wanted to make sure you mentioned?
No, I just think that we've mentioned it before with ranking certain players, but he has, the rare combination of youth and upside that's combined with like elite proven level, track record where he's proven he's capable if at the very least he's above average, right? And on top of that, he's got some ways he can still grow. And then, you said the teams that really need a center, this is where you go this year. We saw Chicago bring in Drew Dalman last year, who isn't necessarily the best center, but their running game was really good, and that was obviously a smart offseason move for them. And so I think people or teams know that like when you have a proven guy like this and you have a chance to pay him a little bit to get something, especially if he's going to a contender. Or, like you mentioned, the connection with Harbaugh and the Giants, right? The Giants could have a good offense if they get their offensive line squared away. And so imagine with the healthy Andrew Thomas combined with bringing in a Tyler Linderbaum, now all of a sudden you might have something there in New York from an offensive standpoint. So I think you take that chance. And people would trust Harbaugh to bring in a guy he's coached for a bunch of years. So it seems like it makes a lot of sense. And what did I hear? He might be the first center paid 20 million a year. What's the record for center
Yeah, I mean
contracts? Is that?
Creed's at 18, 19,
Yeah.
and he obviously had the record. So yeah, Linderbaum is likely going to break that. And yeah, he's not the best center in the NFL, but I mean it was a down year last year for the entire Ravens offense, but I think he's a top five center. And yeah, when you can get a player of that caliber, not just in free agency, but across the whole NFL, like a all pro type player, like it won't surprise me if this guy is an all pro, even in an era where we have Creed Humphrey and Cam Jurgens and all, all these other guys. If he snuck one or two in his career, that would not be surprising.
Yeah.
Um,
His PFF grades for run blocking and overall offensive score for centers were both in the top five. And he's only 25 years old and has a bunch of snaps. So you could say his pass protection hasn't been perfect all the time, but I mean, he's your center. You're going to have guards there to help you. Have the running backs to pick things up. Like it's not just the center that's the problem there for that. So obviously he's not perfect, but he's going to be worth the payday. I think. I think maybe another way to look at it is if you overpay a little bit for Tyler Linderbaum, I don't think you feel bad about that. I don't think that hurts you in the long run because I think he is a good return on investment there. So
All right, let's try to fill in these gaps here because I'm also going to go ahead and just put Kyler Murray at 8 because you have him at 15. I had him at 5. Feels like we're splitting the difference. I'm keeping him on this page like I said I wanted to. I really the structure of having the visual this year for these rankings is great for me as well because then I could just like say I need them on this page because it's cleaner for my brain. So now we're trying to fill in spots 5, 6, and 7. All right, because we've got our top four there that we agreed on. We're all top 8 guys. Kyler Murray, positional value, overall talent, but questions about stuff, behind the scenes, off the field, that sort of thing. But let's get into some of these other names we have here. You have Jamel Dean, you have Mike Evans, you
sorry,
have
I did have
Adafe
something.
Owe.
Did have something in my inbox, so I had to
Oh,
respond.
okay. All right. Josh is making some deals here. No illegal
Nope.
trade, Josh. I'm also the commissioner here, and everyone's trying to run things by me while I'm not looking. So I'm watching Josh sneaky.
I dealt with it. It's
Um,
fine.
I dealt with it. It's fine. That's ominous. That doesn't make me feel good at all. Uh, you have Jamel Dean, you have Mike Evans, you have Adafe Owe, you have Devin Lloyd. I do have three of those four guys in my top 32. All
Okay.
right. The one guy I don't have is Adafe Owe. Adafe Owe was on my long list. I like him. I just kind of think there are the big edge rushers at the top. There are a number of nice depth pieces, kind of like Owe, guys that have played like, 45 to 60% of the snaps in their career as like rotational pass rushers. But this draft is also strong with, these rotational guys. So that's why I didn't ultimately get him in my top 32. But I do think he's a nice player, and I do think he's going to get
Yep.
a like 12 to $15 million a year contract. So I think we'll find a place for him on our list somewhere.
Okay.
Um, but I have all those other three guys, so we'll talk about them for sure. I have Alec Pierce, who you have at 11, I believe, just on the next page. I have Rasheed Walker, who you have much further down, and I have Ken Walker, who you have a little bit further down as well. Um, Rasheed Walker I have up here because he's going to get the Dan Moore treatment. He's a playable starting left tackle, and he is the only one in free agency. I know Jawan Taylor from the Chiefs just got released. He's like the other closest level guy to the trade has just been completed. That's lucky
What?
ever. Um,
Wasn't me. I told you. I dealt with it.
this is gonna get we have too much going on. Jawan Taylor is the closest thing to another like true 17 game startable player at offensive tackle in this free agency class. Um, but the history of offensive tackles in their 30s being released and finding their third team is not great, especially because Jawan Taylor, when he went from the Jags to the Chiefs, it was, hey, this guy's a great athlete and he has a lot of great natural skill. Let's try to hone that here in Kansas City, a la Orlando Brown. And it never fully clicked. Like he was still just athletic and just talented enough to like get by, but the penalties and the inconsistency were a big thing. And I just don't see him leaving Kansas City and like being impactful in another place, right?
Yep.
I think I'm the most rose-eyed, view of Jawan Taylor probably in the entire world. And that's where I'm at. So I don't think anyone's going to be mad we left him out.
Yep.
That is all to say, Rasheed Walker is the only true tackle in free agency that teams are going to spend money on. He's going to get a 20 to 25 million dollar year contract, and he's going to
Yep.
start however many games he's healthy for at left tackle next year for somebody.
Yep.
Um, Now the one thing that could push him down a little bit is I talked about like, okay, is your incumbent team okay with you just walking away? And the Packers are because they drafted Jordan Morgan 2 years ago in the first round out of Arizona. They paid big money to Aaron Banks, the left guard from the Niners last offseason. So they've made their bed in terms of big investments on the offensive line. Now those moves haven't worked, right? Morgan like can't start anywhere for the Packers for the last 2 seasons, and Banks had a disappointing year last year. But Rasheed Walker isn't a good enough player for them to say, well, okay, we have to double down by giving Rasheed Walker a bunch of money to try to fix it. So if he doesn't land in our top eight, I won't be upset, but he's got to be in our top half just because he's going to command that kind of value.
Yeah.
Um, I think
You
that's the one guy I wanted to hammer here.
Yeah, no, I think I will kind of give you free reign on where to fit in Rasheed Walker. Honestly, I put him pretty low because I kind of told you pre-show I had a hard time organizing all the offensive linemen and trying to decide who was going to be a little bit more valuable. And I think the fact you mentioned or the fact that he's a tackle um, makes him stand out, and the age factor that you already mentioned. So I have no problem with him getting quite a ways up here. Um, and then what I'll say about Adafe Owe is, my one knock in my notes for him was that he plays about 60% of the snaps. And so when I watch him play and I went back and watched some of his tape from last year, like he's one of those guys where the highlights really hit hard, really pop for him and feel really exciting. So I get maybe a little bit overhyped with that. So I haven't like he would probably be my easiest one to drop out of the top eight, and probably Jamel Dean because of the age factor and things like that. So because he's going to be 30, which was my knock on
Jamel
him.
Dean was a tough one because I have loved Jamel Dean as a
Yeah,
player for a long time, but I didn't even put him on my long list because I was just like, okay, how many times do we get excited about these corners that are 28, 29, 30 when they
yeah,
change teams? I will say though, just before we got on, this was something I wanted to double check because I was trying to remember, like, okay, how successful has this been over the years? And there's certainly more cases where it hasn't been very successful. But like Jordan Lewis going to the Jags when he was 30, going on 31, it's been pretty good for them. Now he's a slot, so that's a little bit different.
Mhm.
Stephon Gilmore, when he first went to the Colts at 31, he was good and he stayed
Very
good for
good.
like a couple of years after
Yep.
that. But that was a defensive player of the year level guy. And there have been other guys. I mean, there was somebody else just last year. Each year there's like one guy that's 29, 30, changes teams, and he's like pretty good. So I was okay with getting Dean just on my list of 32. He's kind of in my last tier because I think someone could probably get him. And it depends what he does, right? Depends where he goes and what the role is. If one team gave him like 10 million bucks to be their CB2 in an already pretty good and insulated defense,
Yeah.
like I think you could get by. But he's going to turn 30 in October, so and he's played a lot of games, a lot of snaps. So it's going to be hard to bank on him, I think, for a long time. Um,
I can
now
I
let's
can
yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I can talk about my own ranking as being too high as well because, my biggest strength for him is that he's going to be in the right place. He's going to be savvy. He's going to do all the right things, and he still kind of has it physically as well. But that's not a guy you pay top five free agent dollars to. So he's definitely going to fall at least out of the top 10 for sure. And we'll see where he lands after that. But I think you hit it. He's not going to be your CB1 anywhere anymore, and so to have him up this high is pretty ludicrous now that I think about it. But I do think I do think that um, a teeny team that picks him up is gonna be benefited or is gonna benefit from it. I just feel like with each passing year, my mantra becomes more and more like I want out of my 53 man roster, I want 20 offensive linemen and 20 corners. Like that, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. I just feel like for some reason when I watch like my team, the Vikings, and our cornerback room's always been kind of like a hodgepodge recently. We don't have
Hmm.
like an elite guy. We just piece it together. I'm like, I just want them to draft only CBs and only offensive line depth. And like, I know all the other positions are important too, but I just feel like I just overvalue that. So,
That's why I have
so
JJ McCarthy at quarterback.
because we even got a couple more years out of Patrick Peterson,
Hmm.
who, and then the Steelers even got a year or two out of him where he wasn't
Hmm.
great, but he was decent. Like, so Jamel Dean's just one of those savvy guys that he's not gonna hurt you. He's not gonna be in the wrong spot unless you're putting him on an island and saying you need to shut down wide receiver one today. So, but that would knock him out of the top 10 for sure, top 15 probably.
Why, especially with George Pickens being tagged, is Alec Pierce not here in your top eight?
I was gonna ask you, part of my write-up was what am I missing with him? Because everyone is obsessed with his whatever his biggest average yards per catch is the best since whenever or whatever. It's so
Hmm.
great. And I like Alec Pierce, sorry. And I like,
Like Alex Pierce.
yeah, I'm not even gonna say his name right. I'm so down on it. No, I'm just kidding. Um, I just, and I have Mike Evans up here because,
Yeah.
this is again to back up my argument that I've had Jamel Dean way too high. Like, I don't think Alec Pierce is a wide receiver one. I
Hmm.
think, yeah, I think the wide receiver pool in free agency is thin.
Hmm.
But unless you have an established wide receiver one, what is Alec Pierce going to do for you? I don't know personally. Like he's a he's great. He was been great on the Colts because you have a Michael Pittman and you have an underneath
Hmm.
guy in Josh Downs, and so you have Alec Pierce get to do what he does, which is go deep, get some sideline catches in, which is really good. He battles for 50-50 balls. He's a great player, a great good player, but I worry about receivers that I don't feel can be that top dog to get the big bucks because, I mean, we saw Christian Kirk get that nice big contract
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
Jacksonville a few years ago, and everyone was a little bit surprised by that, and it kind of panned out.
Yep.
Why did he get paid that big money? Because you can't force it with that player, and I can't. If I'm running out my offense and Alec Pierce is my number one weapon on the outside, I'm going to be like, why did we pay this guy that much money? And again,
Hmm.
trying not to knock the player because I've liked Alec Pierce for a while.
And you still have him
Um,
at 11. It's not like he's off your list
right, right,
entirely. Yeah.
right. And so I acknowledge that in this receiver class, but in my head, and this is where, the Josh Josh logic puts Mike Evans at six. In my head, Mike Evans is going to go to the Bills and he's going to have a 1,200-yard season with 15 receiving touchdowns, and the Bills are going to get to the Super Bowl. Like that's what's going on in my head right now because Mike Evans is still just a dude on the outside, and he's a guy you can build around, and he just makes everybody better. I feel like Alec Pierce is more of he fits in really nicely, and he's better than a role player. But is he going to change your offense, or is he going to be the leader of your weaponry? Because I know Pickens got tagged, but he was going to be my number one because I think he
Right.
proved last year that he could be. When CeeDee Lamb was hurt,
Hmm.
George Pickens was like, I will do it all. And if he can keep his head right, he will do it all for you. He's capable of it. I don't know if Alec Pierce has that. And this is probably wrong of me, but I kept seeing Alec Pierce super high on other people's lists. And I was like, what the heck am I missing here? I know he's a good player, but like,
Hmm.
am I going to pay 25 million a year for Alec Pierce? I don't know what the going rate for wide receiver twos is, but wide receiver ones, but I don't know if I would do that. I don't know.
The Pierce thing, and I'm not the best person to talk to about this because I've been obsessed with Alec Pierce since he came out of the draft. Um, but he has all of the athletic profile of everything you want in a receiver. He's big, he's fast, he can jump high,
Yep.
but his technical skills finally caught up with that this year. I'm trying to see. I want to find the positional ranking of money for wide receivers. I'll get there later. but and this year was by far his best season. So we're going to see a lot of that. That he's an archetype that's going to be littered throughout our rankings of guys that kind of finally hit their expectation in year four. And now what do we do? Do we believe the first 3 years or do we believe year four? I mean, Devin Lloyd is right there on your list at 8. He's kind of in the same bone, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think with Pierce, he fits that archetype of everything finally came together, but he's also at what's considered a premier position and a position that, yeah, with Pickens gone, he now becomes the top guy.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of questions about the other wide receivers that are available. You have Mike Evans up here, but I look at Mike Evans and I think, okay, is he Devontae Adams or is he DeAndre Hopkins? Is he,
Mhm.
is he going to be Tyreek Hill when Tyreek Hill left Kansas City, even though he was like 10 years younger at that point? Or is he going to be um, Odell Beckham Jr., leaving
Yeah.
the Giants or Browns or anytime Odell
Yeah.
Beckham Jr., is he just going to be the latest in the wide receiver in his 30s, leaves the team he was good at for a really long time, and it just doesn't work out, right? If this model of consistency for Evans has been he loves Tampa and Tampa loves him for all these years, and now all of a sudden they're like just kind of done with each other. What does that tell you? That makes me kind of nervous about what he's actually going to be. And you mentioned the Bills, and the first thing I think about isn't Stephon Diggs going to the Bills. It's Amari Cooper going to the Bills.
Yeah.
And I'm just so nervous of that being repeated. Like it's very rare that the 30 something wide receiver when he
Yeah.
goes somewhere actually turns into something or even resembles what he was before he left.
But Simon, it's
Yeah.
stress free. There's no pressure. Mike Evans already has a Super Bowl.
Okay.
He's not chasing a title like DeAndre Hopkins was when he was going there. He's not, Amari Cooper who's yeah, whatever, trying to get to a more contending team.
Does that matter?
Yes, because Mike
Oh, okay.
and he loves Tampa Bay, but he wants to play with an all-timer quarterback. He played with Tom Brady a long time ago, but he's had years of Baker
James
Mayfield. He wants to finish his
James Winston.
career and catch a whole bunch of more passes from Josh Allen. I'm just telling you. But this was not my call, by the
Mm.
way. I told you I have the most ridiculous, not ridiculous, but I have a good call later. This was not my good call because I think most people are probably saying, "Well, Evan should go to the Bills." It's not a hot take probably, but
I'm just so worried about when he goes to the Chiefs and then he just like plays 6 games and he can't get open and then just like all falls apart. I don't want it to be. I love Mike Evans, but man,
it
I've been
doesn't
more
sound like it.
scarred by seeing these 30-year-old wide receivers go to new teams that just kind of flop.
That's
All
fair.
right,
I will
so
s- I will say, to Alec Pierce's credit, he has kind of put more of his game together. So maybe me reducing him to just your prototypical wide receiver two, he's more than that. So
but to your point on like things worked out so well because he's on the Colts and he has all these other things around him. I've been seeing that for the Colts to afford to keep him would consider cutting Michael Pittman. I think that's wild because yeah, I
Mhm.
think the whole point is that all these guys are complementary. Everyone says
Right.
like build it like a basketball team, and they did. Now I get that maybe you can't spend $60 million a year just on your wide receivers, but like also why not? Because you did
Right.
all this other stuff. So like if you're gonna be all in because now you're just
Right.
gonna be trying to replace Michael Pittman if you
Yep.
do that and you don't have a first round pick in the next 2 seasons. So now Pierce becomes your wide receiver one when he's only thrived as wide receiver two for 1 year, and then you're gonna rely on one small slot receiver on top of that, plus a quarterback coming off an Achilles. So there's a lot of stuff working against it. I think what we're seeing here this isn't a very good top of the free agent class here in 2026 because we're making arguments against our own picks here. I'm trying to quickly look at your kind of 9 through your next tier. Who do you love anyone that we have here on this first page to stay on here, or is there anybody on our next page that you're interested in having jump?
So I had Kenneth Walker a lot higher on my initial rankings before I tweaked,
Okay,
and
yep, and I have him here at 8.
I started. It's so funny because I'll notice some of my recency bias sometimes, and I'll not notice it other times. And with Ken Walker, I think I caught myself. I was like, am I just paying attention to the Super Bowl or the fact that he's on my fantasy team? And so I started putting some of these other guys above him at maybe more premium positions than running back. Um, but I also got a little bit excited. Not that I think he needs to leave Seattle, but when I found out they weren't going to sign him, I was like, all right, good for him. He's going to not get tagged. He's going to get another, hopefully a kind of a one of the top running back contracts. I do think he earned that. So I have him at what, 14? You have him at 8.
Hmm.
Or I have him at 13. I would gladly move him up because I think my biggest thing for him is people always say, yeah, but he's a home run hitter, but what about those negative runs? I'm like, what are you talking about? Every running back has negative runs, and I don't
Hmm.
think Kenneth Walker causes more of them on his own, right? People say he's too patient, but I've seen him be interviewed and break down film of his own plays, and like he very clearly understands his offense and knowing where the blocks are supposed to be and where to go. So while yes, he might be responsible for some of the negative runs, it's also on the offensive line and the whole scheme and everything like that. So um, I think Kenneth Walker's a big boost, and he's one of any of these running backs that now the Vikings released Aaron Jones. If he wants to come play alongside Jordan Mason, be a part of the high octane offense of JJ McCarthy, you know, come on board. I'm ready for you.
Um, let's do it. Let's put Walker at 7 because here's the thing. But Pierce and Evans are also competing against a good wide receiver draft class, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Ken Walker is not competing against that. It is not a good running back class. We have one top running back
yep.
and then a bunch of guys that are probably going to go in the third round and later. Meanwhile, every year there's a bunch of wide receivers in every round of every flavor that you can go get. So like the Colts, if they ultimately lose Alec Pierce, could find an Alec Pierce. There's a bunch of tall, fast receivers in the draft that coming out were about as good technicians as Pierce was when he was coming out. Sure, you're
Yep.
not going to replace year 4 Pierce with anybody in the draft right now. Um, Probably not. And Mike Evans, like honestly, one thing I wrote down. Let me get one draft take in. If this does happen, if he leaves the Bucks and whatever they decide to do, um, Denzel Boston out of Washington. Big guy on the outside, doesn't win by necessarily separating, but he is smart and tough and catches contested balls. They might just take the next Mike Evans. I won't say he's as good as Mike Evans, but that archetype they could just
Yeah,
get in the
yeah.
draft.
The
But
throw it up and go get
there's
it
not a
guy.
Ken
Yeah.
Walker. Yeah. And for Walker, the other thing is he played his best ball after Charbonnet got hurt and he got to just be the bell cow. Maybe some of those negative runs don't happen because your mindset of hey, I have to be the like steady Eddie and the explosive guy, not just the explosive guy. And
And
Brees Hall being tagged makes Walker the number. I mean, I had Walker ahead of Brees Hall anyways, but you're
yeah,
drying up that market for like a true top end running back. So yeah, let's put Walker at 7.
beautiful. Yeah, and because he's been in such a timeshare, he's got less reps on those legs. And I like the point you mentioned about your mindset of this is one of my drives I'm going to get, so I want to hit the big one every time.
Yeah.
I want to make sure they see because I've always like Zach Charbonnet is fine. But there's been times in big moments of games where I'm like, I don't know why you're not putting Ken Walker out there. So, but that's
So
just that's just
let's sort out 5 and 6. I'm going to
okay.
exclude Devin Lloyd from this conversation for now.
That's
Are
fine.
we putting both receivers in, or are we kicking a receiver out for Rasheed Walker?
I think let's go. Let's put Rasheed Walker up here in the top 8 because I wanted to defer to you on O line a little bit, especially with the tackle position. And then I think because we were closer on Pierce, maybe Alec Pierce goes there.
Okay.
I would fight for Mike Evans somewhere in that next tier because where did you had him down at 25?
I am in the bottom tier.
I still think
Yeah.
he's got it. So I would fight for him in the next tier, like 9 to 16 somewhere,
Okay.
if we
All
can
right.
maybe squeeze him in.
We can do that. All right. We're 49 minutes into the podcast. Here's our top 8, everybody. Oh man. Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Phillips, Malik Willis, Tyler Linderbaum, Alec Pierce, Rasheed Walker, Ken Walker, and Kyler Murray. So we got two quarterbacks. We got the top two offensive linemen, two edge rushers, a wide receiver, and then a running back, but the running back that was just Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
That feels like, and like those edge rushers are gonna make 20 million.
Yep.
Those quarterbacks, it's a unique situation for those guys, but one of them's gonna get paid. Those offensive linemen are gonna get 20 plus million. Pierce is probably gonna get 20 plus million. Ken Walker, I wouldn't assume gets to the tag number, which was what, 14 something,
Yeah, something like that.
since he's gonna be trying to get a long-term deal. But if he can get two for 24, three for 36. I like
Mhm.
that's a pretty good. I don't have the rankings, but that would be a pretty good top 10, maybe top 5 running back money. Um, those are gonna be guys that get big contracts and hopefully play well and make an impact on their team.
Yep. And maybe the people have been getting spoiled, Simon, because we've been doing the team power rankings so well. Like we've been pretty lockstep. Like this is a good reminder to people that we don't communicate beforehand. Like
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
if this frustrates people, at least remember that, we're still doing it the pure way. We're coming at a completely different angles. We
Oh man.
process right here.
Here's where we're gonna have a lot of guys that we just don't even have.
Oh boy.
We're
Travis
gonna start
Kelsey.
getting crazy. Hang on, from our top 8, who from our two rankings did not get on this page? It was Mike Evans, Adafe Owe, Devin Lloyd, Jamel Dean.
And
I feel bad. It's always just your guys. I always just bully you. All right, so we're gonna find space for all those guys here on this next page, I think. Okay.
yeah,
So Dean, Evans, Owe, Lloyd. If we get into our 9 through 16, we both have a tight end at 9. Your tight end is in my bottom tier, which I think is wrong. We're gonna keep your tight end in this topic in this section here as well, because I got kind of lost with what to do with Likely, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
Um, because again, like part-time player that you're projecting, and like he
Yep.
did have some low lows with Baltimore. So like, is someone truly gonna pay him to be top tight end, even when there's a lot of good role-playing tight ends in free agency, and there's a lot of good tight ends in the draft. So this was probably also post combine, right? When Stowers did what he did at the combine, and even Roush out of Stanford, like really good athletic testing from those guys. Plus Sadiq is a first round lock. So our team's not going to pay likely, the 14, 15, 16 million he's probably looking for because of that. I have Travis Kelsey in here solely for the reason of, man, if Travis Kelsey did leave, like what would that mean for the Chiefs? It's more of a story thing that I'm telling
Mhm.
by putting him in
Sure.
here. I don't know if we did a tight end ranking, if he'd even be in the top 5 at this point. And he certainly wouldn't provide value to any other team if he showed up to a different team. But this is the Chiefs dynasty, and he's a free agent. All indications are he's coming back, and the Chiefs are going to work out that contract. They just traded Trent McDuffie, so like they're freeing up cash, and
Mhm.
they're going to make this work. And they released Jawan Taylor, by the way. We haven't said it on the pod yet. The Chiefs traded Trent McDuffie to the
Yeah.
Rams. That's kind of
Yeah.
sick. Um,
An
but like
impact.
I think Kelsey deserves to be in here, even if it's like a career achievement award kind of
Sure. I was just gonna
situation.
say ceremonially I can get on board with it. I think he's done,
And
but
maybe he
I can
just
get on board with it.
maybe we just dump him at 16. I think I'm fine with that. But
Oh,
like,
okay. Sure.
because if we woke up tomorrow and Kelsey was like, I'm retiring, like that would be a big deal. That would be like
Yeah,
a
that's
big
true.
name that's a free agent that
End
just
of an
like
era. Yep.
wouldn't be somewhere. And like the Chiefs like would have a whole, because he's, I know I said he wouldn't be valuable for any other team, but he's infinitely valuable to the Chiefs even now. So
Yep.
if he just wasn't there, like we're like putting, the SpongeBob, like we're in a whole new situation right now. So I think he needs to be in here somewhere. But um, talk to me about your two guys here that you had at 8 and 9. Everyone's going to see the little break between the pages there. But Devin Lloyd and Isaiah Likely, we'll get them in here somewhere. Where do you what do you feel about those two guys?
Yeah, so Devin Lloyd's kind of an example of the recency bias. He had a really big splashy year last year with more interceptions than normally or than normal, a lot more plays in the spotlight for a linebacker. Um, but he's also good at blitzing and other things as well, and so I feel like he's a pretty complete linebacker. You have Okereke there at 12, and I put Okereke on mine. And I'd love to move him up because I think he's a great player too. But you're not getting that kind of blitzing upside that you might get from Devin Lloyd. So I was just kind of thinking that as a linebacker standpoint, I think he would be the one that I'd take first in this free agent class. He doesn't need to. I didn't fight for him too hard in the top 8 because I think part of it is last year he looked probably better than he will look this upcoming year. You know what I mean? Like he had a lot of those splashy plays, a lot of picks, a lot of interceptions, and the Jags played really well. But I still think he's worth He's worth um, he's worth a contract this offseason. And then Isaiah Likely, this is my big call of the night. So we'll have to check back in. Um, you're totally right. I'm projecting on the potential. I think it's unfortunate that he's been in an offense that doesn't pass enough at times, and that he's been battling with Mark Andrews for who gets to be the tight end. And it might be because he's not good enough as a blocker, things like that. But I just think the receiving talent's there. And my big call is that Isaiah Likely is going to get signed by the Commanders. And we saw how Jaden Daniels
Lordy.
love to find Zach Ertz. And I just thought, how cool would it be for Jaden Daniels to come back from injury and looking over the middle and finding the ultra athletic Isaiah Likely instead of mid 30s Zach Ertz. And I think we could be looking at a pretty cool pairing of quarterback to tight end. So I started to get enamored with that idea. That's the Josh eye test of the night right there, is that I'm calling Isaiah Likely to the Commanders, and I think it could be such a great mix with him and Jaden Daniels that I put him in my top 10 as as a free agent tight end. Because you mentioned there's a deep draft for tight ends. Kate Otten, who I have on my list down the road, is probably a much better overall tight end, like across the board from a blocking standpoint and all of the other things. But um, when I think of Isaiah Likely, I conveniently only seem to remember the big athletic plays he makes as a receiver. And so, um, we don't know what the Commanders are going to do with Debo if he still has anything in it, but in him. But I think they have a McLaurin on the outside, and I think if you throw Isaiah Likely in the middle for a team that's going to be hungry to get back to capturing some of the magic from Jaden Daniels' rookie year, I just really like that idea of that safety blanket for a Jaden Daniels, who I think would utilize that because he seemed to pick Zach Ertz as a favorite target a lot. So I think that Isaiah Likely would be a supercharged version of that. So I just got excited about that idea. But
And I do really like Likely. And when, free agency first started to, come into, picture, I was like, oh, this is obviously going to be like a top target. This is going to be a guy. And then I think the buzz just hasn't been great.
yeah,
And like I said, as we've learned more about the draft class and everything, that just kind of pushed it down for me. But I looked at my rankings today and I was like, I had my like 26, and I was like, that's just way too low for like the potential, what I think he can get in free agency from a financial standpoint. I said, just last week doing with the Giants, like that's another Raven that should be going to New York because they have a
Mhm.
quarterback that, has some downfield
That would be
accuracy
a good
issues.
spot
You
for
could
him
use a
too. Yeah.
guy's kind of closer and he's young and he's athletic and you can essentially swap out Wan'Dale Robinson for Isaiah Likely based on like, cap projections. So yeah, we definitely need to have him higher. So what I basically did just now, Josh, while you were talking, to help us speed things along a little bit
That's
here.
fair. That's
I
fair.
pretty much took your four guys that were in the top eight we didn't do, and I
Okay.
copied and pasted them down. I took the three guys in this tier that we had the same, and I took Travis Kelce.
Okay.
And I just put them in our consensus column. Now, we do need to have a couple conversations in this, but the eight names I have in here tentatively, and I'll go to you for the order. Isaiah Likely, Mike Evans, Odafe Owe, Devin Lloyd, Elijah Vera Tucker, John Franklin Myers, Jalen Watson, Travis Kelce. Um, and we'll come back to some of those. But Devin Lloyd, I agree with everything you said. He was a guy I really liked coming out. He showed some flashes early on. It was like, oh, for a young linebacker playing well, and then struggled as he got more responsibility. Um, but then also helped when they brought in Foye Oluokun because it was like, okay, this is our true like sideline to sideline. Lloyd can just be a tack dog basically. And then this year it all kind of came together, right? Five interceptions, which seems like it'll just be a spike, but he was a guy that coming out was supposed to be a good pass coverage linebacker as well. So is this just a sign for more to come? And what I wrote on Lloyd, even though I had him much later, and we'll get to the linebacker stacking, but what I wrote was for a team like the Jags who are in contention for the AFC, basically, right? Who look like they're building towards something, who have their defensive coordinator coming back. And he didn't get a head coaching job. Like, is Lloyd is going to be pretty high value for them, I would imagine.
Right.
Now I say that, but it's a good linebacker draft class too. So there are some athletes, there are some pass coverage guys, there are some really smart players that if Lloyd gets signed away for $15 million, the Jags could probably just draft somebody in the second round and like kind of make it through. But with I haven't even looked at what the rest of their linebacker group is doing, but if Luokan is still kind of there as a steady, vet, and they have some other guys there kind of waiting the wings, like they could be okay. Now, the thing I wanted to touch, and I'll just mention a couple of these guys quickly. AVT, extremely talented player, but I had him off my long list initially because of injury concerns. But he had a healthy year last year, and if he's in the market young and healthy, his talent, someone could be getting like a really, really good player for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, John Franklin Myers, the best defensive tackle, best interior defensive lineman in free agency, just a true like pocket crusher type of guy, good run defender, was a really good solid player, then goes to the Broncos and is great in that front. So like that's the kind of guy that you want right now, even though he's 30 or approaching 30. But especially being the only really good defensive tackle in free agency, that's the guy you want to get. And then Jalen Watson, good outside corner, probably the best true outside corner, depending on, what thinking about what we said about Jamel Dean, who isn't on this group. He'll be in the next group. Um, but the guy plays for Spags. He's long, he's fast, very high IQ player. He should be getting paid, but there's always corners coming out. Corners switching teams is always kind of dicey, and you
Mhm.
wonder if he's not with Spags in that defense. Is it going to be a little like when J.C. Jackson went to the Chargers from the Patriots
Right.
and immediately got exposed, and it was like, oh, Bill Belichick just knew exactly what to do with you, right?
Right.
And it's been real hit or miss for Chiefs corners leaving Kansas City, right?
Yep.
Travarius Ward obviously continued to play well when he left. L'Jarius Sneed's just been hurt, but like wasn't even really playing well or
Yeah.
considered to be playing well or anything with Tennessee. And now we have Trent McDuffie and Watson also going. So what is he going to be? Um, but here's what I want to ask you. You had Odafe Owe in your top eight.
Hmm.
Did you even have Khalil Mack in your 32?
I did not.
Okay. So I feel a little icky considering that Owe was essentially Mack's backup with the Chargers last season.
That's fair.
Uh, and the Chargers got better when Mack came back from a broken arm. Um, Even though, they trade for Owe kind of right after Mack broke his arm, but they got better once Mack came back. And then for linebacker, again, getting back to Devin Lloyd, um, is he or is he not? I had him at linebacker 3 in this free agent class. You have him ahead of Okereke, who I have here in this group. How do you feel about the specifically positional stacking of Owe versus Mack as an edge rusher being our edge 3, and then
Mhm.
Lloyd versus Okereke being our linebacker 1?
I think so. The nod over Lloyd over Okereke was the coverage plus the blitzing aspect, whereas Bobby Okereke 140 plus tackles 2 of the past 3 seasons, like he's all over the place, but you're not getting any of that pressure side or nearly as much of that
Mm.
pressure stuff, and so I kind of weighted that probably heavier, maybe heavier than I needed to. I also don't like the fact that the Giants. I know it's a new regime, but this guy's been a captain for 3 years. He's still south of 30, and I don't understand why. I mean, he unless they think he's going to demand too high of a paycheck, but it feels weird that they would be willing to let him test the market, I guess. And maybe it's just because linebacker is that position. Um,
And they
and
did
then
straight up cut him, and the defense was the Giants cap situation was atrocious for how bad they were, and the defense certainly underperformed. So that's definitely true.
yeah. And then as far as I can easily give you Khalil Mack over Dafe Owe there. Like I said, I think I got a little bit too enamored with some of the splashy plays, but he didn't. He's only a 60% snap guy, and like you said, he was pretty much the second string to Khalil Mack anyway. I think Khalil Mack just got the Josh Limousin age punishment. I'm pretty sure. So
But he's still so good.
he
He's
still
still
got it.
like
He still got it. Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be pushing $20 million on this
Yeah.
contract. And
Well,
if the Chargers lose him, they like immediately need to look at edge in the first round kind of to replace him.
yeah. Well, I just I'm very hypocritical, Simon. You know that Jamel Dean and Mike Evans don't age, but Khalil Mack apparently does. So
Khalil Mack,
The one
freaking
thing,
Hall
the
of
two
Famer.
guys I wanted to mention, because the two guys we had in the same tier together, is it's interesting because I had John Franklin Myers in the top 10 initially because of the fact that he was the only interior
I did
lineman.
too. I did too
And
at
then
first.
I
Hmm.
started dropping him because, I mentioned the 60% snap count for Owe. JFM is 50%, right? Like
Hmm.
like is he a product of being part of a good defense? There's another guy I have on this list that it was. higher up initially, and I was like, well, maybe he's just a product of being part of a really, really good defense. And so John Franklin Myers is a great piece of a great defense, but he worries me going elsewhere. And same thing with Jalen Watson. I had him higher, and then I
Hmm.
was like, is he just a Spags guy? He's a great man corner. Is he good enough in zone? Because if he goes somewhere else and has to do more zone, is it going to be the same level, same level of play? But also I ended up with Jalen Watson. I mean, he's coming into his prime and he's been developed under Spags. So I have full confidence that he'll still be really good somewhere. So I didn't was like, I'm not going to bury him for that. But those two guys fluctuated quite a bit. So but that's why I went Lloyd over Okereke. But I really do like Bobby Okereke. But I think you're right on the Khalil Mack over Owe.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you Lloyd, even though I do want to ask you about another linebacker that I have on this page because I had another guy ahead of Lloyd, but I'm gonna give you Lloyd. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna keep Mac ahead of Owe, and then we'll get into the specific order. You didn't have Quay Walker on your top 32 either. And I had Walker until Okereke got released. I had him as linebacker one. Now, I had since been kind of walking that back anyways, but tell me why you have Walker further down.
This is a very easy answer. This is a omission by, and you're going to say it's because I am a Vikings fan and I hate the
Right,
Packers.
yeah. I just want to make
It's
you say
Packers
that,
hate,
basically.
but he didn't even make it on my radar as a free agent. So, oh, that's a miss by me, everybody. I'm sorry.
It is funny. It's really funny free agency because what I do, my process is I go on over the cap and I just like look through all of the players
Hmm.
and by position, and I just write down all the interesting names. But it's funny because on Over the Cap, depending on, the last time you went on and filters and all that, it can either sort by snap percentage or average annual value of their current contract. Someone like Quay Walker is down at the bottom of
Hmm.
linebackers because he's
Hmm.
making $6 million on a rookie contract.
Yeah,
Although was he fifth year, whatever it was, whatever. Um, and he's down there with like Leo Chenal, who was a mid-round pick, or Nakobe Dean, who was a mid-round pick.
right.
Meanwhile, Demario Davis, who's 100 years old, is at the very top because
Yeah,
he, was making 12 million bucks this year or something like that. So it is hard to do that sometimes. But, you don't want to go straight to PFF or The Athletic
right,
because then you
right.
just end up, being anchored
Yeah,
to whatever the
you
rank
don't want to
is.
make a list that's just based off of other people's lists. So I
100%.
took well, and I will say that a lot of interruptions when I'm doing my looking around for things. So I wish he wasn't a Packers player because I feel like every podcast I find some way where I have to say this isn't just because I'm a Vikings fan, but it's not a good
Here,
look. I get you.
here's my thing with Quay Walker. Initially, I had him at 7. Initially, I had him in the top 10 as the best linebacker and a player I've always just liked. But there are deficiencies in the pass game. Like I think Lloyd's development and what we thought about him early in his career, I think those things combined, even though it hasn't been as consistent, you can say like he's already a better pass coverage linebacker. These guys were in the same class, by the way. Obviously, they're free agents at the same time. But Walker was more consistent play right away. Like he got the green dot, with Green Bay, whereas Jacksonville had to go bring in a Luakon because Lloyd wasn't, doing what handling business. Um, at Walker's, maybe not literally every down, but he's again green dot, so he's out there a lot. He's a very good run defender. He's
Yeah.
big. He's athletic. He's made plays in the playoffs. All this stuff. So all that I like. But I think the thing that officially pushes him down for me and why I'm okay with keeping Lloyd above him is because I think Green Bay's going to be okay with letting him go. And I initially thought he was going to get tagged, I think. So that was also part of it. And then tag day came and went. But then I look back at the roster. I'm like, oh yeah, Edgerrin Cooper they love. He's a madman, right? He's awesome. And then Isaiah McDuffie has been like a nice gem that they have found too. And like they're probably just like, Quay Walker was good, but we're on who will be his third DC, and so maybe second or third defensive scheme. And like maybe we just go and are ready to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I think between all three of them, Okereke, Walker, and Lloyd, Jacksonville is probably the most motivated to keep Lloyd. So because of that, I'm happy to say we should keep him above. But Walker as a player I like, and wherever he goes, I'm going to be really interested in. Same with Okereke, because I think Okereke would fit with a team that, I saw someone tweet that his whole career, he's worked with somebody who's on that Titans staff right now, Robert Saleh or Brian Daboll or Gus Bradley, right?
That's
Between
awesome.
New York or Indianapolis or I don't know where he crossed over with Saleh. Um, but he's always been with one of those guys. So like he could go to Tennessee and just like help this young group and like be a leader because like you said, multi-year captain was a captain with the Colts
Yep.
before he got to New York. Or like if a good team wanted to sign him, you mentioned it, he's still only 29.
Yep.
He's a step down in the age gap range in the age range from the like Alex Anzalonis, Bobby Wagner, these guys that are in their Alex Singleton, Demario
Yep.
Davis, these guys that are in their earlier mid 30s. He's not quite there, so he could still be like a good player for a good defense. I think I do think that's in him, but I'm happy to go with Devin Lloyd first, and we'll work in Walker and Okereke a little later on. All right, so tell me what order you want to do these eight guys in, and then we'll get to our second half of the ranking. So we already have Kelsey logged in at 16.
hmm
Do you
I
want Likely or Evans, or I guess Lloyd at 9?
well, I get to make that pick.
I'm letting you make that pick, man.
Oof. I will, since we're doing kind of some ceremony here, let's keep it 9-10 with likely Evans, because then we'll have Evans as the like gets a top 10, even
He
though
gets
he's
in
in
the
the
top 10.
twilight of his
Okay, I
career.
like it.
Let's do that. And then I like the rest of that. I would be You had John Franklin Myers at 10. I would be okay moving him up a little bit if we wanted to, but otherwise I'm pretty content with how it is. But if we wanted to put
I think your point about Franklin Myers though, the questions, and he is a rotational player versus a guy like Lloyd who you're going to bring in to be a mostly every down player. Elijah Vera
Yeah.
Tucker's hopefully going to be a starter for you. Mac is mostly going to be a starter for you. Um, and then Franklin Myers gets the nod over Watson because of there are a lot of good corners in free agency, and there are some corners in the draft, and there's some defense tackles in the draft certainly as well, but in free agency specifically, the gap is more narrow for Watson in the next corner than it is for Franklin Myers in the next defensive tackle. So here we go. Here's your our second group of eight here. Isaiah Likely, Mike Evans, Khalil Mack, Devin Lloyd, Elijah Vera Tucker, John Franklin Myers, Jalen Watson, Travis Kelsey. If that first group, if you take out whatever weird thing happens with Kyler's contract and then Kenneth Walker being a running back, if all those other guys were right around 20 million, I would say this group is probably the like 15
Mhm.
to 18, 19 million group. Maybe someone like Mack or Evans gets like a 1 year, $20 million deal for being veterans and everything. But I think the rest of these guys are probably in those high teens number. I think that's kind of the range I would expect all of them to come in at. And then we'll
Yeah.
see what Kelsey
I
ends
think
up
that
getting. But I think that's a pretty good group there. So guys on this page that we now have to kind of move down. We obviously have Jamel Dean. We have Adafe Owe, who we're
Mhm.
still working on. But I also had Okereke, obviously, who we just talked about. Jaquan Brisker, the safety from the Bears. Quay Walker. And then you have Connor McGovern, the center for the Bills. And I think that's it to work through, right? Those six. So we'll talk about those six here on this next page. Um, talk to me. Did you have Brisker on your list?
I didn't know.
Talk to me about a little bit about if there was any reason for Brisker or if it was just the safety market. And then Connor McGovern you had on here. Talk to me about him.
Yeah, so the safety market, it's kind of the old thing, like safeties aren't typically as valuable as corners. So I knew they were going to be below some of the corners. And then I like the Brian Cook coming out of Kansas City. I think for Jaquan Brisker, I was really high on him a few years ago, and I just feel like I haven't. He's still good, but you and I were on the Bears secondary for years,
Hmm.
and I still feel like while they had a good year with takeaways and they're playing pretty well, I don't know how exciting they are individually, I guess is kind of where I go with Brisker. So I didn't really have a whole big thing to say about Jaquan Brisker. I still think he's a good player, so I'm okay with that. Um, Connor McGovern is an interesting one because I know he's not like an elite level center, and he's got the benefit of playing with Josh Allen and stuff, and that does change your offense and make things potentially a little easier for you. But I kind of mentioned to you pre-show with McGovern and a lot of these other kind of veteran O-line guys. I started looking at snaps, and when you with Connor McGovern, you have a guy that's had a ton of snaps and ton of experience, and when you have the continuity like that, that's a huge deal for offensive line. You can have the best offensive line talent, but if they're hurt all the time or if their combinations are moved all the time, that's a big problem. And so I think that does add some value. I mean, even a guy who, Garrett Bradbury goes from the Vikings to the
Hmm.
Patriots is not particularly the best center of all time, but he's available and he's there and he does his job to a decent level. So I think that's pretty valuable. So I kind of looked at interior offensive linemen and probably overvalued them a little bit. Um, and Connor McGovern gets a little bit bumped because he's with the Bills, right? He's a team that's had success. So I don't think I had anything super insightful about that, but I feel like a guy that's under 30, we had Tyler Linderbaum. I knew there was going to be a big
Hmm.
spread in between that. I think
Yeah.
that talent stuff is pretty easy to see there. But I was like, Connor McGovern, someone's going to be happy to pick him up that needs a center,
Hmm.
without playing out scenarios too much with him. So
I have on the screen here our 17 to 24, so viewers can start to get a look at that because you also have David Edwards here. So while we're talking about
yeah.
McGovern, you're
Mhm.
chuckling because of my specialist at 17, 18. Those guys are
I'm
getting on here.
I'm chuckling because I have Marcus Mariota here.
Oh, that too. Okay, yeah, we got some stuff to work through. Meanwhile, we're gonna talk about guards and centers. McGovern and Edwards, I think, are appropriately on here as your like next group of interior offensive linemen, right? Your center two, your guard
Yeah.
two. I think if I had to really sit there and think about that, I think I'd probably agree with that ranking. I think I just didn't put them on my top 32, mostly because I just don't think they're going to leave Buffalo. And that's not the point of the exercise, right? Um, but I guess because the guard class of free agency is pretty deep with a specific archetype. Like there's a lot of 1 year, 30 and over stopgap guards, right?
Mhm.
So I picked like a representative of that group
That
and I
makes
put
sense.
them in my rankings, right? Now, if David Edwards and Connor McGovern were, and at center, Tyler Biotish was released at the end of
Mhm.
last week. Um, and I have to think, him and McGovern are like comparable players for me. McGovern's probably been a little bit better lately, but again, how much of that is just like the consistency of what Buffalo brought him and Edwards in to do, basically, just like be big maulers and protect Josh Allen. Like that's their job.
Mhm.
The other thing with those guys is how translatable is the scheme that they're trying to go to, right? Those are two big power type guys. They're not getting out on the move. So you're already kind of eliminating where they could go based on what they might be asked to do. So that was also part of it. I don't want to say they're limited because it makes it sound like they're not very good. They're just very good at what they're good at.
Right.
They are, particular players.
That makes sense.
Um so that was kind of why I left them off. And you actually have more offensive linemen than I did, mostly because I knew if I got started, I wouldn't be able to stop. So I
Right.
appreciate that. Um,
Well, and last time we podcasted, I think I had a few, unwarranted digs at the Steelers. So I was like, I'm gonna do Simon a solid. I'm gonna throw Isaac Seumalo on here at 20.
and I love Sam Alou, but he keeps getting hurt. And
Yeah.
he keeps and they're all like soft tissue injuries. Like it's a bunch of stuff that you just don't want from 30-year-old offensive line. Like he had a pec issue throughout the season,
Yeah.
and like I hear that, and when they're at that age, I'm like, that man is like two snaps from a true torn pec and just like being done. So like
Well,
Sam Wells is still a very good player when he plays, but like I think I saw enough of him like leaving games and just like maybe being available and then not playing to be like, yeah, he's just again, if you want to sign him to a 1 year and the rankings on him and the list, he's super high. But all of that in there, like if you want to give him a 1 year, 10, 9, $8 million deal and like you hope he's your center this year, but you also draft a kid in the fourth round to be ready for when his season is over, like I think that's where teams should be at with Sam Allo at this
yeah.
point.
I made a
Whereas
mistake of
Edwards and McGovern, like you could give like real 3, 4
contracts.
year contracts
Yeah.
too, and yeah, they'd be legit players for sure.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I made the mistake of watching parts of the Viking Steelers game from last year, and our elite defense and Sam All was just throwing our linemen forward. You guys ran for like 140 yards against us in that game. So
It was the best run game of the season for the Steelers, and it was in a different country, so it really shouldn't count. All right, yeah, let's talk about some of the weirdness we have on our list here. I have the specialists. I have Brandon Aubrey here. I have Matt Ariza here. I have Tommy Townsend here, and I cheated and put two punters together. Um, But hey, specialists matter. Brandon Aubrey is in a contract dispute with the Cowboys, like as we speak. Um, they've
He
offered
wants 10
reportedly
mil.
offered him the highest paid kicker contract, and he wants to like essentially double that and make
Yeah.
$10 million. So like the best kicker in the league could be moving teams or getting a wildly high number. That's huge. So he's got to be on here.
Yep.
Um, and then look, man, we all know in our heart of hearts that Michael Dixon should have been the Super Bowl MVP for the Seattle
Yep.
Seahawks. Like,
Yep.
did you see that, man?
Yep.
And not only that one game, but all through the playoffs, especially in the NFC, special teams like and punt coverage specifically
Mhm.
were huge. So like a team getting one of these punters could actually be helpful. Like imagine if the Rams had a good punter and a good punt game last season.
Yeah.
Like if you
Yep.
just stick Tommy Townsend on the Rams and also trade for Trent McDuffie, they might win the Super Bowl. So like
Yep.
what like these guys.
And they don't muff the punt return. Like there's another special teams thing
There
that
you
the
go.
Rams do well.
I don't have any return specialists on here necessarily, but I have these guys here, so that's my weird niche thing that I did.
That's
Nothing
awesome.
will beat you putting Brian Cook and me not finding a picture of him on Pro Football Reference from our QB rankings. But talk to me about Marcus Mariota and why he's on here.
So this was before I had Marcus Mariota on my list before. I knew Kyler was probably going to get released, but I didn't have him on my list until, we were texting about how
Mhm.
okay, now he gets
It
released.
officially
It's
happened.
official.
Mhm.
So 17 is egregiously high for a player like Marcus Mariota. I'm not going to fight for him there. But I left him there just out of whatever because every game he played last year, the dude was in games, he was competing. I think I would have had I would have fought for him harder if you hadn't said what you said earlier in that there are just fewer teams that need a quarterback. Because I think in some years when teams are desperate to try to um, fill their quarterback room, I think a player like Marcus Mariota is actually
Yes.
pretty valuable in free agency because a guy that can keep you competitive, keep the team together, and give you a chance to win games depending on how serious your injury is to your starter. So I was kind of thinking in that vein, but you're right in that and you and Ronan mentioned there are only probably gonna be roughly five openings, right? Malik Willis is going to get one, Fernando Mendoza is going to be one, and then um, you know, Aaron Rodgers is probably going to come back. Kyler Murray's going to get one of those. Like at that point, then it's like, yeah, Marcus Mariota is going to be a backup somewhere. But
Mhm.
even if he, let's say, goes and starts in Miami this year, like they could do a lot worse in their given situation than throwing Marcus Mariota out there. So I was just giving him his flowers, but we can send him down the list or kick him off if we need to. That's fine.
Mariota's interesting because he was the one I gave him in that prediction episode. I gave him the one pseudo bridge role, and that's only if the Raiders walk the walk that Tom Brady is talking and don't start a rookie quarterback from day one.
Right?
But because to your point, he's the what's the word I've been looking for tonight? Like not I guess prototypical of this archetype. He's the
Quintessential?
avatar, quintessential. That's the word. He's the quintessential of this archetype of your veteran bridge quarterback that you can move on from at a snap and there won't be any drama,
Yep.
but he can also start all 17 games if you really needed him to, and it wouldn't be a like total disaster.
Right.
Um, he's just like a half step above Jacoby Brissett at this point for that role.
Yep.
Maybe a whole step. So like, if this was a year where I knew that situation was going to happen, I would get it. Now, it's funny you mentioned the Dolphins because as we're looking at it, and it's like they can't trade Tua, so they're gonna have to post you one him. So they're gonna hurt their cap situation by releasing him. It gives them zero. Not only does it not
Yeah.
give them cap relief, it hurts their cap even more.
Right.
And if Malik Willis's value is going up, like they are barely gonna scrape enough. Like so if they can't be a Malik Willis team, okay, does this Kyler offset thing work out with Miami? Do they do Kyler? But do they want
That's
to
very
do
interesting.
Kyler moving on from Tua? Or is Mariota for 2 years, $15 million, 1 year, $15 million? Is that the move? So I think I'm okay with being here, him being in the 32, but yeah, probably not on this page. Um, let's see. Let let me scratch your wide receiver brain here. I've got Jawan Jennings and Romeo Dubs here. You
Yep.
have Dubs in the next page. You don't have Jennings on your 32.
No.
How do you feel about these guys?
I so I went a little bit more youth with Romeo Dobbs because it's a weird thing because the Packers for a few years had the youngest receiver room, and we were waiting for someone to emerge as the one, and no one ever did. And I don't think Romeo Dobbs can be a one. I do like what I see from him from a complimentary standpoint, and I do like that he's still pretty young. Juwan Jennings is an interesting one. He has stepped up when he needs to, and he's always going to be in the right spot. Um, but I don't know. He hasn't played for any other team, has he?
No. Mm-mm.
No, he's always been a 49er. Yeah. So for some reason, and this might be just a, prejudiced eye test for me, because he does do a lot of things the right way. I worry about him in a different system if he would have the ability to step up into a bigger role consistently. And so knocked him a little bit for that. I do like him as a player though, and like I said, he has stepped up and he's been Purdy's go-to when, because the Niners are allergic to having a healthy receiver room. So, so he has to step up more than he should have to. Um, but maybe he should get paid to go be a wide receiver too somewhere. I don't know.
Jennings and Dobbs fall in the same thing for me that I was talking about with Devin Lloyd, and it applies to Travis Etienne, who we also both have in this tier.
Yep.
And it's like these are good to useful players on contending teams. So,
Yep.
A, what would they look like in different situations? I don't really know. Dobbs is interesting because he's an ex receiver, like he's a legitimate, like big, good route running, good hands, ex receiver. But to your point, the talent of where he is on that like if you ranked all just the X receivers, all the like 6'2" plus backside route runner, good hands guys, like he'd be pretty low on that, but he's a
Yep.
serviceable enough player in a really like hard role to kind of fill. And Jennings is probably the most valuable if he's your number three, like a power, like a big slot dude.
Yep.
But he's been forced into this role where he's essentially also that for Dobbs. So that like, her as Dobbs. So if you take those guys off their teams, like are the Packers ready to not have Dobbs? Can Golden be that guy, even though he's a different build, but you drafted him in the first round, so
Right.
he be that person? And then yeah, the Niners don't have anybody like that. So what money are these guys going to command and for leaving contending teams as pretty vital pieces within the formation? They had a lot of value for me. Um, and then Travis Etienne, similar to Lloyd, like 3 years was inconsistent but showed flashes and then had a really nice year. This year, he's currently the second best running back on the market, and it really helps him that it's not a good for draft class. It also really helps him that Trevor Lawrence is like his best friend, right? So like
Mhm.
that's helpful. Um, but I just wonder for a running back that had one really good season, and really good is even an overstatement, but one good season for Liam Cohen, who's like, dude, I can scheme up running back stuff for all sorts of guys.
Yep.
What is his value going to be? But the rest of the market helps him. So I'm happy he's in this tier, and he's here for
Yeah.
both of us. And I think we just plug him into 24 where you have him. I mean, I am up at 19,
Yeah.
but based on the guys that we still have to kind of fill in,
Yeah.
I'm happy to just slide him over to 24 and say, you deserve to be here. You're a talented player. I hope the Jacks keep you because I think that'll be best for
Yep.
his career at this point. Um, but other teams are going to show interest at least
Yeah.
because of what the rest of the running back market
I
looks
did.
like.
I read an article today that an insider, according to Jags
Mm,
Wire, says that
mm,
they are perfectly content with Bashal Tutin and that Travis Etienne is probably going elsewhere.
tough.
But I had the same thought as you, and it's funny because we keep thinking we see this Jacksonville turnaround, and Travis Etienne had missed his first year due to injury, and then he was dealing with the same coaching issues that Trevor Lawrence was that was
Hmm.
hindering his development. And I think I just got excited seeing last year what we thought he could be out of college. Like he's a good receiving back, and he's a home run threat out of the backfield as a receiver, and he's a decent runner, at least kind of how I view him. And so he's another guy I wouldn't hate for the Vikings to bring in and get a little explosive playability in the backfield. Because I think he can do it, but I think to your point, the reason he's not further up and not at the Ken Walker level, for example, and I would have had him lower than Brees Hall if Brees Hall hadn't been tagged, is I don't think he's as complete of a package, right? And he's not, I think it's if you have a good scheming coach, he's going to be useful for you, but he's not going to be epic for you. So,
Let's see. Who else do we both have on this tier here? You also have Boye Mafe here.
hmm
Um, You also have Brian Cook here. This is where you had Cade Otton. You have Rashid Shaheed.
Did you have
Um,
you had some of those guys, right?
let's see. I have Cook in the next group.
Okay.
Um, Mafe and Shaheed were on my long list. So
Um,
Shaheed is this guy that I
let's
initially did have in like my top 20, but I'm like, man, every time he just never it never fully delivers. And
yeah.
sure, you could say like he's going to go to the Raiders and be with Clint Kubiak for the third time, and it's like, well, what? How consistently has he done anything for good? So I like the idea of Shaheed, and
So
I like the
let's
talent. It just hasn't turned into anything.
let's drop him out then because I'll be honest, that one was I kept seeing him on other people's lists because I didn't want to put him on my list at all or even high on my list. And I was like, okay, I must be missing something. Or are people valuing that he's a good returner because there is an extra element. He's not just a
Hmm.
deep receiver, he's a returner. But to your point, like even the fantasy community started to get excited when he was going to Seattle, when he got traded to Seattle. And I was like,
Yeah.
what is he going to do in Seattle that's different? Sam Darnold throws to one receiver and he doesn't have to throw because their defense is so good. So I don't know what he's going to do.
And trust me, as
So
a
I,
as a
I
as a dynasty owner of Shaheed, I was also hopeful, but I could tell you he was not in my starting lineup for very long.
no, no, for sure.
Okay, so let me just show everybody what we're kind of working with here. So I've brought down Jamel Dean, I brought down Odafe Owe, I brought down Connor McGovern, and I went ahead and I put David Edwards on here because I think what we said about him, just like, yeah, he's probably the next best guard after AVT. And if you can get the young guy instead of the 1 year stopgap guys, like that is value. I think I just was making it easy on myself by skipping those guys.
Yeah.
But I do think they're probably deserving to be up here. I have Bobby Okereke here, and I just kind of left them in that order. I put Okereke below Edwards, um,
Mhm.
and below McGovern. Walker I put at 23. ETN I put at 24. So we're at one, two, three, four, five, six, seven of our eight.
We need
And
a 22.
so if we sort out between, I think we leave our bit 17/18 of Mariota, Aubrey, and the punters to the next page. We're looking at Boye Mafe, Jawan Jennings, Romeo Dobbs, Brian Cook, Cade Otton, Alante Taylor I have here, Cam Curl I have here. You have him on the next page. You have Sayamalu. I'm going to go ahead and veto Sayamalu. I
Fair
think
enough.
because Curl and Cook and Dobbs we have on the next page. Do you have Taylor still? I forget, or was he was a late cut for you?
He was a late
Um,
cut. He like just outside of the 32. And when I was looking up stats, his numbers didn't tell the story I wanted him to tell. That's why I kind of dropped him. But I also put in my write up that the Saints have just been bad lately. So it's not that Alante Taylor has been
yeah.
playing poorly. It's just it's not going to look good when you've been on a team that's had a losing record for 5 years in a row. So I could get on board with Alante Taylor at least in the last eight for sure, if
Yeah.
not even up here.
And Taylor's fun because honestly he was maybe just like a year early for being this like big nickel corner, 6 foot, 200 pounds, like physical, blitzing, attacking. Dennis Allen was loves this kind of player, was great for him. Um, and I think the Eamon Worry draft pick and everything that we're doing right now with these big slots, like this kind of Jalen Petrie, like moving to full time slot with Houston. Like this is perfect for Alontae Taylor. And I just pray. I wrote this last summer about the Saints for Fansided. This is the archetype that the Saints have to finally cut loose of, and it's just they want to draft, develop, and sign their own guys, but it's why their talent has hit a ceiling and why their cap is it through the basement. Um, because they just sign every good draft pick they have, and you can't do that if the team's not good. So like, I
Right.
hope he gets to a good team, and they pay him in the 12, 13, $14 million range to be their big slot, and he can be effective for a good team.
Yeah.
So he'll be in that next group somewhere. Why did you have Owe so high, but Mafe this far down? Because to me, I
So
had them right next to each other as like good rotational guys, but I don't know if either of them are guys I want to be starters playing 70% of the snaps or more.
yeah, so when I watched like I've mentioned that the OA highlights pop a little bit for me, and so that's a little bit of the eye test. It just seemed more exciting when I went back and watched Lil Boy and Mafe. I know he was drafted and there's still a lot of potential there, but you mentioned rotational. He more or less looked like a guy that like I'm part of the Seattle defense, but I'm definitely just a part of it. I'm not the biggest name here because I had them much closer earlier. Until I was like, wow, I don't know if he would be as good if he wasn't with Seattle. I don't know if he would be as, you know, as splashy. And I know he's young enough to where he has some upside, but also he just he didn't stand out to me as much as Owe. So I don't know. But I admittedly probably needed to watch more film on the both of them. So
I mean, I think stylistically you're right. Like Mafe is a big, strong, edge-setting pocket crusher. He's the Khalil Mack mold, right? And Owe is the speedy, bendy, pass rushing specialist type that
right.
has room to improve as a run stopper. Um, so I think that difference makes sense. But I would still have them like much closer if I'm doing it. But
That's fair.
so if we have Dean and we'll stop the slide for Owe because I do think at the end of the day, Owe's going to get paid. Um, and it could even be to stay with the Chargers as a number three. They could pay him and Mac if they really wanted to. But Dean, Owe, McGovern, Edwards, Okereke, Walker, ETN, between Jennings, Dobbs, um, and I mean we could say Cam Curl, but like where do we want him along with Brian
I
Cook?
would
Make the case for Cade Otton. Why should Cade Otton stay up here at 22?
so when I was so it's kind of because I was like I have to balance out my ridiculousness with putting likely so high for like not having produced nearly as much. Kate Otten had the second best pass blocking grade for a tight end, and he had the eighth most pass blocking snaps. Like he is out on the field all the time, doing all the blocking things, and I think we've seen him kind of blossom as a weapon in the passing game as well.
Wait, did you say he has the most pass blocking snaps
No,
or run
total
block?
blocking snaps,
Total
total
block.
blocking
Okay.
snaps. Yeah,
I
but
was
he
like,
had
cool, your tight end that doesn't actually run routes and just is a blocker.
no,
So
sorry,
he's an offensive line.
eighth in total blocking snaps and second in pass blocking grade for tight ends,
I see.
if
I
that
see.
makes sense. So,
Do you
yes,
care that your tight end is a really good pass blocker?
yeah,
Is that really
yeah,
important to you?
yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah, yeah.
I like my tight ends to catch passes, but that's just me.
Well, look at where I put it likely. Of course, like that more. But no, I think mainly the stat for that was like I feel like he's a little bit more of a complete tight end, and while he may lack in kind of the bigger playability, he I feel like he's done a lot as a receiver in Tampa Bay for the most part, and he's also been a good blocker. So that's why he was up there. But I was gonna say for 22, um, in lieu of what I just said about Alante Taylor and what I've said earlier about how I want teams to just be cornerbacks and offensive linemen, I think that I would be because I would prefer Alante Taylor over Juwan Jennings here, and I can easily get above Kate Otten, and we already threw Shaheed off there.
Mhm.
And Romeo Dobbs is a Packer, so clearly we could just bury him, and everyone feels better about their lives anyway. So,
All right. So here's where we ended up with this next group here. Jamel Dean, Odafe Owe, Connor McGovern, David Edwards, Bobby Okereke, Alante Taylor, Quay Walker, Travis Etienne. I would think if I had to put a number on these guys, I mean this could be a wide range. But these guys are still in the double digits, I'd say.
yep.
This is probably 10 to 17, 10 to 18 million
Hmm.
bucks for these guys, I think, per year. So if that first group was 20 plus for the most part, that second group was like 15 to 20 to 21 maybe, and this group is more like maybe downside of like 10, but could still get to that 17, 18. I think that makes sense for all of these guys. It's a
I feel
wide
like,
range, but
yeah,
that feels right for this group.
I feel like they're the 2 year deal guys too. Like
Hmm.
I don't know how
Hmm.
many long term contracts we're getting out of this group.
I would give Taylor a long-term deal if I knew I was specific. Like now, if you're gonna be like, okay, he played 1 year of outside corner, and if we're gonna pay an external free agent, we want him to play on the outside. If you're gonna do that, I would do 2 years because you give him the first year to see if it's good or not, and if it's not, you cut him for year two. But if you're like, no, I have a good defense and I have this vision where he's a full-time nickel, and that's the role, I would give him a long-term deal to do that.
Yeah,
But if you're gonna try to experiment and do something different, yeah, I would give him a 2 year deal.
that makes sense.
All right, let's sort out how we're going to do the bottom of this group here.
Oh
So
boy. Well,
here
Dobbs will be in there for sure.
here's what's going on. I've brought down
Brisker.
Brisker.
Yep.
I brought down Aubrey. I brought down Mariota. And I brought down the punters. If we look at my list, Evans we've already done. Dean we've already done. Likely we've already done. And my bottom three I'm not like married to. I know you had Brian Cook higher.
Yep.
Wandale Robinson was like one of your last cuts. And I have Reek Woolen and Nashawn Wright
Hmm.
as in my last spot there as both just like Reek Woolen up and down career.
Hmm.
Nashawn Wright didn't really get onto the scene until year five. So for both of them, it's a little bit like, are we really going to pay this guy 2 for 24, 3 for 26, whatever, and like stick him at as a starting outside corner? Is that really what we're going to have to do and just hope that they're consistent for us and that works? So that's iffy. But I think the reason they made the list is I think someone's going to take that swing.
Gotcha.
Similarly, how you have some offensive linemen here that are a little sketchy,
Yep.
someone's probably going to take the swing on them to at least be almost competent starting level offensive lineman, I'll say. Um, but I think those are the guys that, like, based on what else we've got going on, we only have a few spots left. Those are guys we can probably leave off the list, but it's good that Woolen, Wright, some of the guys on your list there, Johnson and Illuminor, they're getting shout outs at least.
Yeah, for sure.
Are you okay with Brisker being on this list and maybe Brian Cook getting lift off?
I'd be okay with that. Yeah, I'd be
Because I
okay with
like both. Maybe Cook still gets that spot at 32, but we have some other spots to work through
that. Yep.
here. Um,
What do
I like both
you?
players. I think Brisker probably just offers a little bit more in the pass game, and Cook is probably more consistent as a run defender. But I do think they're the two safeties that maybe end up commanding the most money in free agency.
Mhm.
And we both have Cam Curl. I think he should definitely be on here.
Oh,
Um,
that's right. Cam Curl needs to be on there.
because Cam Curl's only 26, man, and he's
Yeah.
going to be on his
Yeah.
third con. Like,
I
shout
was
out to him
so.
for being. I forget if he was undrafted or he might have been a day three pick,
Yeah.
with Washington. But like, as
Let's.
quickly as he turned into a real starter for Washington to get a good second contract and play his way all the way through it with a contender like the Rams, and is now in a good shape to probably get a third contract, even if it's on a new team. Um, by the way, I hope he stays with the Rams, but
Right.
they just committed to McDuffie, and we know they don't do a lot with DBs, so like they're probably gonna let him go. But he's already shown that he can switch teams and still be good. So
Mhm.
he's gonna go somewhere I think and still play well. Whereas
Yeah.
someone like Cook has been with Spags his whole career. So like if he leaves Spags, it's a little more unknown than Curl, who's proven he can go off and do something else.
Yeah. I forgot we still needed to talk about Cam Curl because I had him higher, as you know, and I started to look into the numbers and they didn't support what I wanted to say about him, and so I started to backpedal. So I got nervous. 'Cause I think I referenced him and Emmanuel Forbes when we were previewing the playoffs, you, me, and Ben,
Mhm.
and I was talking him up, and then I was like, wait a second, these don't support that. What am I doing? So I thought I had to overcompensate, but I really like Cam Curl. So can we slot him in there at 28,
Whatever that next one
29,
is. Five,
29?
6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
Cam Curl 29. You want to do Dobbs at 30?
let's do it.
All right. So now let's get Curl there. Dobbs there. Talk to me before we talk about a couple of these offensive linemen. Talk to me about your two defenders here, Caden Ellis and Quiddy Pay.
So Quiddy Pay was kind of like when you said, I think that he's going to get some money. Quiddy Pay is one of those guys where he has played a decent amount for the Colts, and he has been there, and I think someone's going to be tantalized by the fact that he was a decently high draft pick, and he's somebody that has some talent, some upside. And so I was like, someone probably is going to pay him. I'm not going to fight for him on 32 to even keep him in the 32. Caden Ellis is just he's another eye test guy for me. He's like my Nick Bolton for the Falcons. Not saying he's as good as Nick Bolton or anything like that,
Let's
but
say that's rude to Nick Bolton. Jeez.
that's yeah, no, he's not comparatively the same player, but Caden Ellis is the guy that every time I watch the Falcons, he's there making a play. And there's always a place on a team for a guy like that. And so I was like, you know what? I feel like I don't know. He's a good blitzing linebacker. He's always in on the tackle. He's a guy that is going to help your team. That being said, I'm not going to break the bank for him. I'm not going to fight for him above any of the other linebackers we have or any of the edge rushers we have. Um, so it's not a strong argument. But he's one of those guys when I watch him, he's always around the ball. You notice him more than other players. So
I apologize to him if this is wrong, if I'm putting him in the wrong box here. But you're hitting one of my least favorite NFL archetypes, and that is the white off-ball linebacker. Um, you've got a 30-year-old white linebacker who's a 1 year starter on this list. Like Leo Chenal is even right there. Leo Chenal
Yeah.
it like does all the same things you just mentioned, and he's 4 years younger. So
Well,
like,
what about, but isn't the snap count different there? Or am
I
I
mean,
or am
yeah,
I
because Ellis has the
overinflating?
one. Well, Ellis has the 1 year starting for the Falcons. He did his 4 years with the Saints,
Yeah.
and then got I guess this 1 year contract or maybe 2 year contract with the Falcons. Um, whereas Chenal, rookie to the Chiefs, played out his rookie contract as this rotational hybrid outside linebacker sort of guy, but it was
Yeah.
mostly a blitzer and edge setter.
Yeah, Caden
Um,
Ellis is in the last 3 years, 100%, 98, 95% of those defensive snaps.
mhm.
That's valuable. No.
No, no,
Okay. All
he's
right,
just running
fine.
around out there.
Whatever.
He's just running around. Uh, let's see. Quiddipe, I hear you. But to me, there's a, and for both these guys, like not only Leo Chenal, but like Nakobe Dean is out there as a blitzing linebacker again, part-time player. So
Yeah.
you said snaps was important to you. Whatever, playing, big deal.
Availability is the best ability, Simon.
Yeah, all right, Bill Parcells. Quiddipe being on there, yeah, I get it. You know, nice rotational pass rusher. Again, do you want to pay 10 million bucks for that, or do you want to get that in the second round of the draft, right? A guy you can maybe develop, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the offensive lineman, Zion Johnson, I loved him coming out. Still struggles with like stunts and pickups and stuff, and the Chargers are gonna be happy to. Actually, some people are saying the Chargers might actually bring him back now, and he might get a decent contract. So like, there's something there. Because he's still getting better. Jermaine Illuminor's bad. I gotta say it. He's just a player I've never enjoyed. Uh, and he certainly talks a lot for a guy that's not very good. So I can't support him being on the list. If we look back at mine, I'm okay with Cook being off. I'm okay with the corners. Okay with Wandell being off. Likely Dean, we've already gotten. But here's where my interior offensive linemen are. And maybe we don't get these guys on the list because we did, McGovern and Edwards kind of together as that next step down from Linderbaum and AVT. But Tyler Biadasz and Cade Mays, not counting McGovern, are the guys in the running for center too. For me, those are both guys that teams could sign to multi-year contract, like we were saying with McGovern. They could sign to multi-year contracts and they could be your center for the next 3 years. There's not a lot of those in free agency. There's not a lot of those in draft. Teller and Batonio, my bit of putting the two guys next to each other started with them because it was like these guys are leaving the Browns, which is wild. They've been there for so long together and they've been awesome. But getting older, they're in that stage of their career now where they're going to be 1 year stopgap, over 30, but like could play at a really high level, or they could get hurt in 2 games and like retire. So like that's where, and we've seen that over the last couple of years. Greg Van Roten has done that for a few teams now in a row. He's in free agency again. Kevin Seidler has done that for a couple of years in a row. He's in free agency again. So I just put them up there as the like quintessential version of that archetype of you need a guard for a year. You're going to try to sign one of these guys for 10 million bucks, and if they start and play the whole season, they'll be good and you'll be happy. But they could also just get hurt and in training camp and not actually be on the team. So
Yeah.
that was why I included them. So of my list that's left, I would try to copy paste those four dudes into those last two spots. But if you wanted to try and keep Zion above one of them, I would get that as a slightly younger player. But I think that's kind of what we're down to figuring out for these last two spots.
I would
Look at that,
say
all offensive linemen for the last two spots. I love it.
I think that for the sake of since we had 12 guys that weren't even on the list, we should include as many as we can. So let's put those
Love
four
it.
guys at the end. Unless you have a quick change of heart and you want to give Brian Cook 32. But otherwise,
Oh yeah, that's right.
because we
Let's see.
both did have Brian Cook, I think he could stay at 32 and we could put, why don't we just put, let's do this. Put all four of those linemen at 31 and then put Brian Cook at 32.
Uh, you know, That's hilarious. That's amazing. We're not gonna do that. I'm not that crazy. Give me the centers.
Okay,
I'll lop off the guards, and we'll go with Cook.
perfect.
Because the argument for Cook being pushed down is it's a deep safety market, and we don't know what he's gonna be like not with Spags. we can make similar arguments for Teller and Petonio, right? It I just mentioned there's a lot of decent guards, and again, like Zion Johnson's a guy you could take a swing on. There's a lot of decent guards in free agency. There's always decent guards in the draft you could take a swing on. But center in particular, I really wanted to kind of note you can get these guys and like they can really play, and they probably even deserve to be higher on this list, to be honest with you. But we'll just stick them at 31. But
Okay.
I especially want people to know Cade Mays is good. Cade Mays is good. Also, I haven't mentioned his name yet. Brady Christensen, also Panthers backup guard, is legit. I hope he's a starter somewhere this year. But he's now 32, 30 also, so he's already quickly in that one year stopgap kind of mold.
Gotcha.
All right, yeah, cool. So let's get Biotish and Mays. Watch this. This is the end of the podcast. If you're still here watching, you get to see the magic happen. Although I just copied Dobbs the second time, so that's what's happening.
And
When
while you're doing
Josh
that,
spits out all his stats, this is usually what I'm doing in the background. And when people see me stare like a moron, yeah, go ahead and say some stuff for us.
oh, I would say while you're doing that, I'm happy we're excluding your Nashon Wright and Tariq Woolen combo. Like, I think you kind of said it with your description. Like, made some splashy plays, have been very up and down. Nashon Wright just kind of burst on the scene. Like, I wouldn't want to spend money on any of them. Or on either of them. Even though Tariq Woolen just played in the Super Bowl, like I'm still sketchy about his play. I think he's more of a product of being part of a really good team. And I kind of feel bad for Wandale, but I also kind of feel like he's one of those guys on that list. Like the reason why Alec Pierce is the number one receiver right now. Like there's just not. I think that is another player that you could get the same level of value. Not that he's not a good player, just that I don't know if he offers enough uniqueness to your wide receiver room that you can't get elsewhere. So
And again, wide receiver draft class, like
yeah,
you know, dampens his value a little bit. When I was doing the War Room with Ben last week, I specifically even said with the Giants, like third round pick, they could just take Antonio Williams as like your speedy, undersized slot receiver. And if I'm like, man, you could just get someone at 79 to do what Wandale does, like, because originally, and I have him next to Likely because like initially I was like, ooh, like top 10, top 15, high level pass catchers could be high volume guys. And even with the Giants, I was like, you're probably picking one of these. With Likely, the question is, we don't know what he's going to look like with an expanded role. And with
right.
Wandale, it's the opposite. It's like in the NBA, taking a good bench player and giving him starter money and being like, okay, you're the starter now. Hope you can do it. Wandale is, you were the good stats, bad team guy. You
Yeah,
were on the 20 win team, putting up 25 points a game
right.
because, he's slot merchant, like getting all these short targets for a bad team. Can you go to another bad team and still do that? Or can you go to a good team and be like a useful player? Like we don't know. There's projection there. There's talent there for sure. And
Right.
yeah, I'm not going to say Chiefs because they don't want another undersized speedy guy. But can he and the Bills have Khalil Shakir? Pick another good team. Not the Ravens. They have Zay Flowers. Crap, this is
Zay
harder than I thought it was
Flowers,
going
yeah.
to be.
Chargers
The
have Lad
Rams.
McConkey. The
Yeah, the Rams. Can he go to the, they have their big outside guys. Can he go to the Rams and would he be productive? Or would he kind of just be like an afterthought?
right.
That's what I'm not sure of. Um, all right, so we rounded out the 32 with Brisker, Aubrey, Mariota, the punters, Cam Curl, Romeo Dobbs, the centers, and Brian Cook. Um, let's quickly get everybody back to. I love going from the. Oh, there's our in-season power rankings. I love going from the end of our list every time to the top of our list and just be like, oh yeah, the top of the
It
class doesn't.
looks a lot
I was
better.
gonna say it doesn't look that bad. You know what? It actually is still kind of bad. It's not
It's
great.
still pretty
Hendrickson,
rough.
Phillips, Malik Willis, Tyler Linderbaum, Alec Pierce, Rasheed Walker, Ken Walker, Kyler Murray's top eight. Um, Josh, we managed to do it in under 2 hours. It took 40 minutes for the top eight. It took an hour and 10 for the other 24. That's about par for the course, though. All right. So next time we see Josh, we haven't sorted out yet. We'll sort that out shortly after the pod. Um, we will be back next week with what is it? The 11. Ooh, we're gonna have some version of mock drafts and big boards next week with Ben and some other box score hosts. So make sure you guys are back next week, checking that out. Speaking of box score, speaking of mocks and draft stuff, make sure you guys are going to the Box Score Network YouTube channel. We will have content going up on there almost every day. I know this week we have something going up every day from this pod, but we will have other content from Ben's show and some group Box Score Network things that will be unique to the Box Score Network YouTube channel. So make sure you guys are over there checking that as well as all of our other pods with Box Score Network. And that's it. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. If you are on YouTube, thank you for being here. Like, subscribe, comment. Let us know who your favorite free agents are. Let us know who you want for your teams, who you want off of your teams. We would love to hear that. If you're an A1 Day One listener on audio, thank you so much. We will talk to you again next week. Everyone have fun and be safe out there.